Welcome back, it's me, Lou. I'm here for another action figure review. Today from Bandai Namco in the Dragon Stars line, and we are featuring Piccolo. Alright, so we have Piccolo here, the much beloved character from the Dragon Ball saga. This version of Piccolo is missing the headdress and ceremonial wear. You know things are getting serious in the heat of battle when Piccolo takes off his hat and his cape. It's a great looking figure. As you can see, he has his antenna, he has that constant frown and those glaring eyes. The musculature retains that color scheme of the green and the pink. It's a really nice looking figure. I believe the upper torso here is reused from the Goku figure. And let's talk about his articulation. Alright, so Piccolo's head turns, but this is where I have an issue with it. He's constantly looking downward. You can't position his head at all to look forward or up. So he's just constantly just staring at the ground. If you watch the show, you know that Piccolo is kind of always very stoic. And he's always just kind of standing there with his arms crossed. But, you know, if you want to take this figure and pose him like in a nice action pose or in a battle sequence, you know, getting him to look up is pretty much impossible. He's constantly going to be staring at the ground, which I think is, for me, one of the most disappointing things. But in terms of the rest of his articulation, it's very stock and standard. His arms move, and then the upper sleeve also turns. He has a bicep cut here, double jointed elbows, as you can see, articulated wrists, and he does have multiple hand options. And for me, I chose to go with the pointer fingers and then the open palm. He swivels at the waist, legs kick up, double jointed knees, articulated ankles, and it swivels at the boot. So it's a great looking figure. I think besides the fact that his head doesn't look up, I think another issue I have kinda is the antennas on his head. They're kind of still made of that harder plastic, and my fear is that if you're not careful, you know, you might accidentally snap them off or stress mark them. Ideally, I kind of wish the antennas were made of a softer, rubbery plastic that plugged into his head. But yeah, this is one of those things where, you know, if you're handling the figure, you know, just be careful. You don't want to accidentally bend these to the point where they're going to snap off or stress mark them, because I don't think they're flexible at all. You know, the material feels just as hard as the rest of the plastic. Also, I kind of have an issue with the hip joint. This is something we've seen in other figures. There's kind of this drop down to allow for a greater range of motion. But for me, the one thing I dislike about that, it's hard to get the legs to stand evenly, because if you push this up, this one comes down, and if you push this one up, you know, and vice versa. So it's kind of like, you know, they're kind of dependent on one another. So it'd be nice if they kind of engineered this better, you know, for future figures. But keep in mind, this is an older figure. This isn't the most recent version of Piccolo. But this hip joint style is something I've kind of had issue with, you know, with other figures. So otherwise, I think it's a beautiful looking figure. You know, if you really want Piccolo without the cape and headdress in the Dragon Stars line, this is the only way to go. And it's a fantastic looking figure. And speaking of Piccolo, let's bring out some of the other figures. Alright, so over here on our left, we have the first version of Piccolo with the headdress and cape. And then on the right, we have the most recent version of Piccolo. This is the one that appears in the animated feature, Dragon Ball Super Hero. These two figures are not identical. They're actually different. If you notice, the cape pieces are actually different from one another, as are the forearms. Over here, besides the color scheme being different, the ribbed musculature is on the front of the forearm, whereas with the older figure, the musculature is on the side. So this kind of gives you an idea of the different Piccolo figures that are out there. Right now, as it stands, I want to say I think my favorite might be the Super one, although there's something about each figure that I really like. For example, I like the cape piece on the first release more so than this one, just because this one's too big. I do like the color scheme on the most recent figure, although I do feel that the first version has a nice deeper shade of purple. I do like the red belt on Super over here. It looks great. And before I forget, let's take out Gohan. You know, here's student and teacher, and they look great next to each other. And the cool thing with Gohan is you can easily pop off his head and then just go for the capeless look. And then you can have the two of them next to each other. So, yeah, it's a great looking figure. But like I said, I kind of have issues with, you know, the antennas and the legs. But, great figure. You know, I think ideally if you want like the perfect Piccolo without the cape, you might have to resort to the Figure Arts figure, even though it's a slightly smaller scale. But overall, you know, I think it's a great addition to any Dragon Stars collection. And it's kind of a must purchase in my opinion too, because, you know, Piccolo, it's like I said, you know, when things get hot and heavy, you know, the headdress and cape comes off and he just he just goes to town. So excellent looking figure. You know, despite its flaws, you know, I still think it's great. All right, with that being said, let's wrap this one up. Once again, my name is Lou. If you're new to my channel, welcome. If you are a returning viewer subscriber, thank you so much for your continued support. I greatly appreciate it. So until the next video, be safe, take care of yourself, buy lots of toys, and most importantly, be happy. And I'll see you at the next one. All right, later.